Welcome to Quranic Nur. Discover the hidden meanings in the Quran's verses with Said Nursi, known as the Wonder of the Era, and learn how to build faith in today's world. Subscribe for more. Today we're exploring this simplified version of the 10th word from the Risale-i Nur, where we dive into resurrection and the hereafter, challenging those misconceptions and strengthening our faith. Note, the 10th word is a long and comprehensive lesson from the Risale-i Nur that discusses resurrection and the hereafter, making complex ideas easier to understand. The original lesson is divided in 4 sections. It starts with a metaphorical comparison story, followed by 12 aspects, 4 key concepts, and 12 truths. To make this rich content more accessible, we've broken it down into 4 lessons. Each lesson will repeat the metaphorical story, followed by 4 aspects, 1 key concept, and 4 of the 12 truths. The metaphorical story that will begin now is repeated in every video. You can skip it by clicking on the next paragraph. These stories are not mere tales. They are authentic reflections of the truths that follow, designed to make these deep concepts easier to grasp.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Merciful. Look then to the signs of God's mercy, how He restores life to the earth after its death. Verily He it is who quickens the dead. He is powerful over all things. Brother, if you seek a simple and clear discussion about resurrection and the hereafter, then listen to the following comparison, together with my own soul. Once 2 men were traveling through a land as beautiful as paradise. By that land, we intend the world. Looking around them, they saw that everyone had left open the door of his home and his shop and was not paying attention to guarding it. Money and property were readily accessible, without anyone to claim them. One of the 2 travelers, driven by greed, took whatever he wanted, stealing and committing all kinds of injustices. Despite his actions, no one in the land moved to stop him. But his friend said to him, "What are you doing? You will be punished, and I will be dragged into misfortune along with you. All this property belongs to the state. The people of this land, including even the children, are all soldiers or government servants. They aren't stopping you now because they are civilians at the moment, but the laws here are strict. The king has installed telephones everywhere, and his agents are always watching. You should stop and fix this before it's too late." But the empty-headed man said in his obstinacy, "No, this is not state property. It belongs to some endowment, and there's no clear owner. Everyone is free to use it as they wish. I see no reason to deny myself the use of these fine things. I will not believe they belong to anyone unless I see him with my own eyes." He continued justifying his actions with philosophical arguments, leading to a heated debate between the 2 travelers. First, the empty-headed man said, "Who is the king here? I do not know about him." And then his friend replied, "Every village must have its headman. Every needle must have its craftsman. And as you know, every letter must be written by someone. How can an extremely well-ordered kingdom like this have no ruler? And how can so much wealth have no owner, when every hour a train arrives filled with precious and artful gifts, as if coming from the realm of the unseen? The train indicates the cycle of a year. Indeed, every spring is a loaded train of supplies coming from the realm of the unseen. The announcements, seals, and stamps on all the goods, the coins, and the flags waving in every corner. Can they be without an owner? It seems you've studied foreign languages a bit, but you are unable to read this Islamic script. You also refuse to ask those who can. Let me read you the king's supreme decree. The empty-headed traveler argued, "Let's say there is a king. What harm can he suffer from the minute use I am making of all his wealth? Will his treasury really decrease because of me? Besides, I don't see anything here that looks like a prison or punishment." His friend responded, "This land you see is a training ground, an exhibition of the king's magnificent arts. It's also a temporary guest house with no permanent residence. Don't you see that every day one group arrives while another departs and disappears? This land is constantly being emptied and refilled. Soon the entire land will be changed, and its people will move to another never-ending residence, where everyone will be rewarded or punished based on their actions." That treacherous, empty-headed one retorted rebelliously, "I don't believe it. Is it at all possible that a whole land should disappear and be transferred to another land?" His faithful friend then replied, "Since you are so obstinate and rebellious, come, let me demonstrate to you, with 12 out of the innumerable proofs available, that there is a supreme tribunal, a place of reward and generosity, and a place of punishment and incarceration, and that just as this world is partially emptied every day, so too a day shall come when it will be totally emptied and destroyed." First aspect, the necessity of a supreme tribunal. Is it at all possible that in any kingdom, and particularly so spectacular a kingdom as this, there isn't a reward for those who serve obediently and no punishment for those who rebel? Reward and punishment are virtually non-existent here. So, there must therefore be a supreme tribunal somewhere else. Second aspect, the generosity and justice of the kingdom. Look at the organization and administration of this kingdom. See how everyone, including the poorest and the weakest, is provided with perfect and beautiful sustenance. The best care is taken of the sick. Royal and delicious foods, jewel-inscribed decorations, embroidered garments, wonderful dinners, all are to be found here. See how everyone pays attention to his responsibilities, except for empty-headed people such as yourself. No one misbehaves his bounds by as much as an inch. Even the greatest of all men serve with an attitude of fear and respect. The ruler of this kingdom must be extraordinarily generous and compassionate, yet also dignified, awesome, and honorable. Now, being generous requires being patient and understanding. Compassion can't work without kindness, and it's essential that those who are disrespectful are corrected to maintain honor and integrity. But not even 1,000th part of what that generosity and awesomeness require is to be seen in this realm. But in this world, we barely see even a tiny fraction of the generosity and greatness that are truly needed to provide us with all these worldly gifts and pleasures, leaving them unattended and available for us to use freely. The oppressor retains his power, and the oppressed his humiliation, as they both depart and migrate from this world, and as the ruler is so generous and compassionate. Then their problems and incidents have to be left to the same supreme tribunal of which we speak. Third aspect, wisdom, justice, and the need for a supreme tribunal. See how all activities and interactions are managed with such profound wisdom and order, and how true justice and fairness are applied in every matter. Now, a wise state like this requires that those who seek refuge under the protecting wing of the state should receive favor, and justice demands that the rights of all matters have to be protected, so that the wonderfulness of the state should not suffer. But here in this land, not 1,000th part of the requirements of such wisdom and justice is fulfilled. For example, empty-headed people such as yourself usually leave this place unpunished. So again we say, matters are postponed for the consideration of a supreme tribunal. Fourth aspect, the eternal display of generosity and magnificence. Look at these innumerable and peerless jewels that are displayed here, these unparalleled dishes laid out like a banquet. They demonstrate that the ruler of these lands is possessed of infinite generosity and an inexhaustible treasury. Now, such generosity and such a treasury deserve and require a bounteous display that should be never-ending and include all possible objects of desire. It also requires that those who partake in this display should be there forever, free from the pain of death and separation. Just as the end of pain brings pleasure, the end of pleasure brings pain. Look at these displays and the announcements they have within, and listen to these signs proclaiming the fine and delicate arts of a miracle-working king and showcasing his perfections. They are declaring his peerless and invisible magnificence and speaking of the subtle manifestations of his hidden perfection. Therefore, there must be a great and invisible magnificence in hidden perfection. This flawless hidden perfection requires one who will appreciate and admire it, who will gaze on it exclaiming, "MashaAllah," and making it known. As for hidden and peerless magnificence, it too requires to see and be seen, or rather to behold itself in two ways. The first consists of contemplating itself in different mirrors, and the second by being contemplated by fascinated spectators and astounded admirers. This hidden magnificence wishes to be seen and admired eternally. It desires also permanent existence for those who gaze upon it in awe and rapture. For eternal magnificence can never be content with a temporary admirer. Moreover, an admirer destined to perish without hope of return will find his love turning to disappointment whenever he imagines his death, and his admiration and respect will yield to deprecation. It is in man's nature to hate what he does not know and cannot obtain. As eternal magnificence cannot content with a temporary admirer, and everyone leaves this world very quickly, vanishing after seeing only a glimpse of his shadow of his perfection and magnificence, without being fully gratified, it is necessary to go to an eternal residence where we can contemplate his divine magnificence and perfection forever. The following 8 aspects will continue in the next chapter of the 10th word series of the Risale-i Nur. Now we shall set the first 4 interrelated truths, corresponding to the 4 aspects discussed in this video, as well as an introduction. First indication, the pairings of understanding. The foolish man in the previous story and his trustworthy companion can be approached as comparison through the following perspectives: the instinctual soul in the heart, the students of philosophy and the servants of the all-wise Qur'an, the people of unbelief in the community of Islam. The worst error and misguidance of the students of philosophy, the people of unbelief and the instinctual soul, lies in not recognizing God. Just as in the previous story, the trustworthy man said, "There can be no letter without a writer, no law without a legislator." We too say the following: imagine a book, especially one where every word contains another entire book, and every letter holds a beautiful poem. Such a book must have an author. It would be entirely impossible otherwise. So too, this universe cannot be without its inscriber. This is impossible to the highest degree. For the universe is precisely such a book that each of its pages includes many other books. Each of its words contains a book, and each of its letters contains a poem. The face of the earth is just a single page in the book of the universe. See how many books it contains. Every tree is like a word with many pages within it. Every fruit is like a letter, and every seed is a dot. In that dot lies the entire blueprint of the tree it will become. A book like this could only be written by a mighty author who possesses infinite magnificence, wisdom, and power. Faith naturally follows when one observes the world, unless you are blinded by misguidance. Similarly, a house cannot arise without a builder, particularly a house adorned with miraculous works of art, wondrous designs, and amazing ornaments. Whereas much art has been put into one of its stones, as into a whole palace. No intelligence will accept that it could arise without a builder. It certainly requires a master architect. Moreover, within the house, rooms constantly change and take shape every hour with perfect order and ease, just as if clothes were being changed or scenes were passing across a cinema screen. We can even say that within each true layer, numerous small stages are created. In the same way, the universe also requires an infinitely wise, all-knowing, and all-powerful creator. For the magnificent universe is like a palace, with the sun and moon as its lamps and the stars as its candles. Time is like a rope within it, on which the glorious creator threads each year a new world. And within this world, he threads 365 fresh and orderly forms. He changes them with the utmost order and wisdom. He has made the face of the earth a bounteous feast, and he adorns it in each spring with 300,000 species of creation, that he fills with innumerable kinds of generous gifts. This he does in such a way that everything remains distinct and separate, while their being are at the same time so close and connected. Is it possible to overlook the existence of the creator of such a palace? Denying the existence of the sun on a cloudless day at noon, when its reflection is seen in every bubble on the ocean, every shining object on land, and every particle of snow, would be madness. For if one denied and refused to accept the existence of the single, unique sun, he would be compelled to accept the existence of a whole series of minor suns, each real and existent in its own right, as numerous as the drops and bubbles of the ocean, as countless as the particles of snow. It would be necessary to believe that each tiny particle contains a huge sun, even though the particle is only large enough to contain itself. It would be an even greater sign of madness and misguidance to refuse to believe the attributes of perfection of the magnificent Creator, even while observing the well-ordered universe that is constantly changing in wise and reliable way, that is being continuously renewed in disciplined manner. This too would be like the ravings of a lunatic, since it would then become necessary to believe and accept that absolute divinity is present in all things, even a particle. Every particle of air can enter and influence every flower, fruit, and leaf. If the particle were not guided by a creator, it would need to know the structure and form of every object it touches and affects. In other words, it must possess all-encompassing power and knowledge. Every particle of soil is potentially capable of giving rise to all the different seeds that exist. If it is not acting under command, it must contain within itself equipment and instruments corresponding to all the various trees and plants in the world. Or to put it differently, one must attribute to the particle such artistry and power that it is aware of the structure of each of them, understands the forms each will take, and is capable of creating those forms. Compare other matters with this. From this you can understand that in all things there are numerous and manifest proofs of God's unity. To create all things from one thing, and to make all things into one thing, is a task possible only for the Creator of all things. Pay attention to the sublime declaration. There is nothing that does not proclaim His magnificence with praise. If someone doesn't believe in the one true God, they must believe in many gods, as many as there are created things. We will now continue with the first four truths, corresponding to the four aspects. First truth, the gate of divinity and sovereignty, the manifestation of the name, Ar-Rabb, sustainer. Is it at all possible that the magnificence of God's dominion and His divine sovereignty should create a universe such as this in order to display His perfections with such superior guidelines and elevated purposes, without establishing a reward for those believers who through faith and worship respond to these guidelines and purposes, or that He should not punish those misguided ones who treat His purposes with rejection and indifference? Second truth, the gate of generosity and mercy, the manifestation of the names Karim and Rahim, generous and merciful. Is it at all possible that the Creator of this world, who in His works demonstrates infinite generosity, infinite mercy, infinite brilliance, and infinite magnificence, should not give reward in a manner befitting His generosity and mercy, and not punish in a manner befitting His brilliance and magnificence? If one looks at the disposition of connections in this world, one sees that all animate beings, from the weakest to the most powerful, are given some fitting form of sustenance. All necessary nourishment is obtained not through the exercise of strength, but through the existence of need. The decisive proof of this is that powerless infants enjoy the finest of livelihoods, while strong wild beasts suffer from all kinds of deficiency, and that fish, despite their lack of intelligence, grow fat while the tricky fox and monkey remain thin in their quest for livelihood. There is, therefore, an opposite relationship between sustenance on the one hand and strength and willpower on the other. The more one relies on strength and willpower, the more difficult it will be to sustain one's living. Indeed, the weakest and most powerless are given the best form of sustenance. This bounty is distributed with such lofty generosity that a hand of infinite generosity is manifestly at work. For example, in the spring, all the trees are dressed in garments as fine as silk, just like the houris in paradise. They are adorned with flowers and fruits like jewels, and offer us a variety of the choicest fruits, delicately extended like the hands of a servant. Similarly, we are given wholesome and sweet honey to eat from the hand of the bee with its sting. We are clothed in the finest and softest of clothes by means of an insect that has no hands, and within a small seed, a great treasure of mercy is preserved for us. It is self-evident that all of this is the effect of a most magnificent generosity, a most delicate sense of mercy. Then, too, the fact that, with the exception of man and certain wild animals, all things from the sun, the moon, and earth, to the smallest of creatures, perform their functions with the utmost accuracy, do not overstep their bounds by an inch, and observe a universal obedience in a spirit of great wonder. This shows that they act by the command of a creator of great magnificence and dignity. It is also apparent that the way in which all mothers in the plant, animal, and human species provide their weak and powerless infants with the delicate nurture of milk, in loving compassion, is a manifestation of God's all-embracing mercy. The fact that a hungry lion will prefer its baby to itself and give to it a piece of meat it would otherwise have eaten, that the cowardly chicken will attack a dog in order to protect its little, that the fig tree contents itself with mud while giving pure milk to its fruits. This shows to anyone not blind that they act in accordance with the commands of a creator, infinitely merciful, generous, and attentive. Again, the fact that even unconscious plants and beasts function in the wisest and most conscious of styles demonstrates conclusively that one utterly knowing and all-wise has set them to work, and that they are acting in his name. Since the master of this world has, then, such infinite generosity, mercy, brilliance, and magnificence, it follows that his infinite magnificence and brilliance require to warn the disrespectful and rude people, that his infinite generosity requires infinite bounty, and his infinite mercy requires a reward worthy of itself. Now in this transitory world and short life, only a millionth part of all this, like one drop from the ocean, establishes and manifests itself. There must therefore be a place of holiness appropriate to that generosity and worthy of that mercy. Otherwise, it would be like denying the existence of the mercy that is visible to us, and this would be like denying the existence of the sun that fills daytime with its light. For permanent death would transform compassion into disaster, love into suffering, blessing into punishment, intellect into a tool of misery, and pleasure into pain, so that the very essence of God's mercy would disappear. There must in addition be a realm of punishment appropriate to God's magnificence and dignity. For generally the dictator leaves this world while still in possession of his power, and the oppressed while still subjected to humiliation and dishonor. These matters are therefore suspended for the attention of a supreme tribunal. It is not that they are forgotten. It sometimes happens, too, that punishment is applied in this world. The disasters suffered by disobedient and rebellious peoples in previous centuries show that man is not left to his own devices, and that he is always subject to the blows that God's brilliance and majesty may choose to inflict on him. Is it at all possible that man who has the most important duty in all of creation and be gifted with the most important capacities, that man's creator should make himself known to him with all his well-ordered works, and man should then fail to recognize him in return by way of worship? Or that God should make himself beloved of men through the numerous adorned fruits of his mercy, and man should then fail to make himself beloved of God through worship? Or that God should demonstrate his love and mercy to man through his various bounties, and man should then fail to respect him with thanks and with praise? Is it at all possible that man should remain unpunished, left to his own devices, or that that powerful creator of brilliance and magnificence should not make ready for him a place of judgment? Is it at all possible, on the other hand, that he should not prepare a place of reward and never-ending happiness for those believers who respond to the merciful and compassionate God, making himself known by recognizing him in faith, to making himself beloved to his brilliance by loving him in worship, and to his mercy by being grateful and praying? Third truth, the gate of wisdom and justice, the manifestation of the names, Hakim and Adil, wise and just. Is it all possible that the Lord of magnificence, who demonstrates his divine sovereignty in the wisdom and order, the justice and balance that pervade all things, from the molecule to the sun, should not bestow favor on those believers who seek refuge beneath the protective wing of his mercy, who believe in his wisdom and justice, and whose acts are for the purpose of worshiping him? Again, is it possible that he should not punish those rude and disrespectful men who disbelieve in his wisdom and justice and rebel against him with indifference? Now, not even 1,000th part of that wisdom and justice is exercised in this temporary world and in humankind. It is rather postponed. Most of the people of misguidance leave this world unpunished, and most of the people of guidance leave it unrewarded. All things are then postponed for a supreme tribunal, an ultimate happiness. Yes, it is apparent that the being who controls this world does so in accordance with an infinite wisdom. Do you require a proof? It is to dedicate meaning and benefit in all things. Do you not see that numerous wise meanings are intended in all the limbs, bones, and veins of man, even in the cells and in every particle of his body? Do you not see how certain parts of the body offer benefits as numerous as the fruits of a tree? All of this shows that matters are done in accordance with infinite wisdom. Also, the fact that there is an ultimate balance in the art of everything shows that everything is done with infinite wisdom. The compression of the by the minute exact program of development of a beautiful flower into a tiny seed, written by the pen of destiny, the inscription of the list of deeds of a tree, its life history and list of equipment on a small seed show that a pen of greatest wisdom is at work. The existence of a high degree of fine artistry in all things proves that there exists also the signature of an infinitely wise maker. Moreover, the fact that the tiny human body contains an index of all creation, the keys to all the treasuries of mercy, and mirrors all the divine names, demonstrates the existence of wisdom in that fine artistry. Now, is it at all possible that the wisdom that exists in such divine acts should not wish to favor eternally those who seek refuge beneath the wing of his mercy and those who offer obedience and faith? Do you need proof that everything is done with justice and balance? The fact that everything is given being, shape, and placed exactly where it should be, in precise balance and measure, shows that all things are done with infinite justice and balance. Similarly, the fact that all things are given their rights in accordance with their nature, that they receive all the necessities of their being and all the requirements of life in the most fitting form, this too is the mark of infinite justice. Again, the fact that every request and need, expressed by natural inclination or necessity, is always answered shows the existence of infinite justice and wisdom. Again, the fact that an answer is always given to every request made by natural instinct, necessary needs, or in a painful situation, demonstrates the existence of infinite justice and wisdom. Now, is it at all possible that the justice and wisdom meet even the smallest needs of the tiniest creations, should fail to provide survivability to the greatest of creatures, mankind? Why should he not respond to the greatest of his prayers and beggings for help? Why should he not preserve the majesty of his divinity by preserving the rights of his servants? However, a person who spends a short life in this mortal world cannot and does not experience the truth of such justice. Rather, he is left before a supreme tribunal. For true justice requires that man, this apparently little creature, should be rewarded and punished, not in accordance with his pettiness, but in accordance with the magnitude of his crime, the importance of his nature, and the greatness of his duty. Since this passing and temporary world is far from manifesting such wisdom and justice for mankind, who is created for eternity, there must be necessarily a never-ending hell and everlasting paradise of that just and awesome possessor of magnificence, that wise and glorious possessor of perfection. Fourth truth, the gate of generosity and magnificent, the manifestation of the names, Jawad and Jamil, generous and magnificent. Could it be possible that infinite generosity, endless wealth, unending treasures, matchless and eternal beauty, and perfect and everlasting perfection would not require the existence of grateful worshippers, yearning admirers, and amazed observers, all destined to stay forever in a place of eternal happiness? Yes, the way the world is adorned with so many beautiful things, with the moon and the sun acting as its lamps, and the earth filled with the finest types of food, like a banquet of bounty, and fruit trees turning into dishes of food, renewed each season. This all shows the existence of infinite generosity. Such boundless generosity and kindness, such endless treasures of mercy, require the existence of a place of rest and happiness, a place that will last forever and contain all desirable things. They also require that those who enjoy this happiness should stay in that place forever, without experiencing the pain of ending or separation. Just as the end of pain brings pleasure, The end of pleasure brings pain, pain that such infinite magnificence and generosity would never allow. Therefore, there must be an eternal paradise, where people will live in it forever. Infinite generosity desire to bestow infinite gifts and infinite kindness. The bestowal of infinite gifts and infinite kindness requires in return infinite gratitude. This infinite generosity wants the continued existence of those who receive all the kindness, so that they can continue to show gratitude and appreciation for that constant bounty with constant pleasure. A temporary enjoyment, made bitter by cessation and lasting for only a brief time, is not compatible with the requirements of generosity and magnificence. Look at the different regions of the world. Pay attention to all the plants and animals, each like an exhibition with innumerable signs proclaiming His magnificence, and listen to the prophets, academics, and servants who are announcing His infinite magnificence. They all show the flawless perfections of the glorious Creator by revealing His miraculous arts, inviting people to admire them. The Creator of this world has the most important, astonishing, and hidden perfections. He wishes to display these through His miraculous arts. Secret and flawless perfection desires to be seen and admired by those who can appreciate it. Eternal perfection requires an eternal display. This eternal display, in turn, requires the never-ending existence of those who will appreciate and admire it forever. The value of perfection will always decrease in the eyes of its admirer, if that admirer does not exist forever. Eternal beauty can never be satisfied with temporary admirers. An admirer who is doomed to be separated forever will find his love turning into enmity when he realizes this separation. His admiration will turn into ridicule, and his respect will become contempt. The beautiful, artistic, and brilliantly adorned creatures that fill the earth are a testimony to a unique, transcendent magnificence. They reveal the subtle charms of an unparalleled hidden perfection, just as sunlight testifies to the presence of the sun. Each manifestation of that sacred, transcendent magnificence indicates the existence of countless hidden treasures in each of God's names. Now so exalted, peerless, and hidden a magnificence, just as it desires to view its own fairness in a mirror, and to behold the degrees and measures of its magnificence in a conscious reflection, desires also to become manifest, in order to look on its own magnificence through the eyes of others. In other words, this magnificence wants to be seen in two ways. First, by looking at itself in mirrors of different colors. Second, through the admiring eyes of those who desire for and are amazed by its magnificence. In summary, magnificence and fairness want to see and be seen. To achieve this, there must be yearning witnesses and amazed admirers. And since magnificence and fairness are eternal, those who witness and admire them must also live forever. Eternal magnificence can never be content with temporary admirers. If an admirer is doomed to be separated forever, his love will eventually turn into enmity when he realizes the separation. Admiration will change into ridicule and respect into contempt. For just as a selfish man is an enemy to what is unknown to him, so too he is against to all that lies beyond his reach. However, when faced with a magnificence that deserves infinite love, endless longing, and admiration, he responds with hidden enmity, hatred, and rejection. From this we understand the profound reason for the unbeliever's hate to God. Endless generosity and kindness, unmatched beauty and perfection, all of these require the existence of eternally grateful and longing worshipers and admirers. However, in this temporary world, we see that everyone quickly leaves and disappears, having only tasted a small part of that generosity, just enough to spark their appetite, but not enough to gratify it. They have seen only a faint glimpse of perfection, like a shadow, without being fully gratified. This means that people are headed toward a place of eternal happiness, where everything will be given to them in full measure. In short, just as this world, with all its creatures, decisively demonstrates the existence of the glorious Maker, so too do His sacred attributes, and names indicate, show, and logically require the existence of the hereafter. O God, O Revealer of the Qur'an, for the sake of the Qur'an and for the sake of the one to whom you revealed the Qur'an, illuminate our hearts and our graves with the light of belief in the Qur'an. Ameen, O one from whom help is sought. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Said Nursi's teachings. We hope you found inspiration and deeper understanding in today's lesson. Continue exploring the wisdom of the Qur'an. Please like, share, and subscribe to Quranic Nur. Your support helps us grow.